Okay, so how many of you have ever used social media to talk with your friends? Okay, good. How many of you have used social media for entertainment, videos, images, pictures, whatever? Good. Okay, so actually, how many of you have used social media to talk about your rights? Okay, let's hands up. How many of you have used social media to talk about political issues? Okay, less people. Okay, so basically we are really used to speaking up about problems, right? We use social media for everything. It's basically in our lives. But what would happen if you actually couldn't speak up because you're afraid of the consequences of speaking up, even as you speak up in social media? I come from South America, in that little piece of land that's called Paraguay. It's in the heart of South America. It's really hot. And as in my presentation, you're going to see a lot of Spanish, so please just don't freak out. And if English is not my first language, so if I butchered your language, just bear with me. And fun fact, my country was selected in 2014 one of the happiest countries in the world. And even though we have that slogan in our country, we have serious issues with poverty. There's a lot of poor people in my country, and one of the ways that poor people rely on getting out of poverty is education. So you would imagine that if someone messes up with the only way that you can get out of poverty, you will be really angry. My country also has a dark history behind it. We had one of the longest dictatorships in the whole South American continent. And it was 35 years of dictatorship that shaped the way that we live. Our dictator had this slogan that's peace, democracy, and liberty. But when I was studying this in high school, I really believed that there was no peace, no democracy, or liberty at all. But since we have a change of generation, when I talk to other people, they always told me that there were better times during dictatorship. And if you kept your mouth shut, and if you didn't do anything, then you would have a good life. But what happened was that because of the dictatorship, because of our history, we created this culture of silence, and we created this culture of corruption, where basically the dictator would put people that he liked in high places, and they will benefit from political benefits or money that wasn't theirs, and they weren't qualified for the jobs that they were doing anyways. But no one was saying anything, because it was a time where people could call you a communist, and then police would come to your house, and they would take you, and they would interrogate you, and then no one would hear of you again. So basically, there was this fear all around people that helped corruption to continue. All of this changed when in 1989, the dictatorship fell, and since then, today, we have 27 years of democracy. Also, I thought of that I could speak up and nothing bad would happen. But in September 2015, I felt the dictatorship, and we all felt the dictatorship still present in our lives. I come from National University of Asunción, which is the capital city in my country, and this is one of the biggest and oldest universities in the country. We have a slogan in Latin that says "Vitam impendere vero," which basically means consecrate your life to the truth. And it was really ironic at the time last year, because we found out that people weren't actually being truthful to us on everything that was going on in our university. So what basically happened was that this local newspaper, started investigating cases and leads of corruption that they heard in our university. And surprise, they found out that there was actually corruption in the university. And what happened was that the president put 23 people that he knew inside the university. And they had really big paychecks, and they were stealing a lot of money without being qualified for that job, or without even showing up to the job. So they were kind of like ghosts. They were getting money from the taxpayers because it's a state university, and also from us that we pay for the university. So at that moment, since we have this culture that I'm telling you of being silenced and of corruption that we're all used to, I thought when I read that news, well, it's not really surprising. Like, we kind of all knew that people were stealing money one way or another, and well, what can we do, right? That's basically what most people in my country think when there's injustice. What can we do? But it really surprised me when young people rise up and they were really angry because they realized that they were stealing their education. There were a lot of people that come from really far places to the capital city, and they stay and they spend a lot of money to receive a high quality education. They knew that the people were stealing their education, and they were really angry. So they got together and they started protesting. And all this huge movement in my country started increasing. So what you see in this picture is, since we were up so many hours in the warm weather in front of the main building where people were protesting, the firefighters were trying to give us water so we will feel better and continue protesting all along. Well, I don't know if you know about the stereotype of all Latino people, that they were always late. Well, it's kind of true. We're all kind of late sometimes. I also struggle with being on time most of the time. But in my country, last September, everything kind of fell into place. Because as university students were talking about how their education was not the best one, high school students also took the streets, and they were protesting about how the education system wasn't enough and it wasn't giving them the tools that they needed for the 21st century. They were basically stuck in another century. And they filled up the streets, and also the university students filled up the streets, and everything that you would hear in the news for a long time was education. It was all the problems and all the issues that no one ever addressed, that we always knew, but no one ever talked about. So what we did with social media to create a change was to come up with a hashtag that basically means UNA, that is my university, the acronym of my university, and no te calles, which means don't shut up. Because we had that background of dictatorship, because we were silenced so much time. So all of this creativity was around us. Suddenly, you could see that there was a lot of young people that actually care, and they created so many material. They were creating photography, videos, blogs. They were following the news. They were actually talking about the issue. It was amazing. It was really amazing for me to be part of that. And as the protests continued, because we were protesting for about a month, and we were not attending classes, we were doing a strike as students, all of the students kind of help in the background that they have. So medicine students will help people that weren't feeling well during the protests, or journalist students would come up with videos and new things and creative ways to kind of get the sympathy of the public. And also students of law would interpret the documents and help with the research that was going on. There wasn't a lot of time, since we actually received donations from people that were with us, and they were understanding what we were doing, because at the moment we didn't understand the huge movement that was starting. Because after the month that we would start protesting, other people created other hashtags, and they started to talk about other problems that happen in public institutions, in private institutions, and suddenly we realized that every single institution had problems of corruption, and people were starting to talk about it. And also there were people that would come from really far places to capital city and tell us their stories about how hard it was to protest when they were in the dictatorship time, and how much valuable was the things that we were doing to shape and change the society that we were living in. On September 24 of 2015, the dictatorship was present again in our campus. So what you see here is a bunch of documents that we found that were burning. So in September 24, what happened, I remember it was at night, and it was suddenly hell on earth was happening, because all around campus, they started burning documents in different colleges. And also, you realize that your cause is so important when people are trying to hide evidence from you. Obviously, things are not okay, things are not right, as they were continuously saying that we were just being rebels without a cause. Also that night, there was this woman who was cornered by students when she tried to steal documents from the main building where people were surrounding. And she was so desperate to escape that she locked herself in a car, and students wouldn't let her go. And there was also a TV station that were following the news that only one of all the other TV stations that we have, only one of all of them was with us that night. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing with my eyes, but she was trying to hide evidence so much that she started eating papers, which right now it's really funny, but at the moment it's like, really, you're doing that, really? And it was amazing. Like, I still don't believe it sometimes when I tell this story. So where does this leave me in the whole story? So this is me wearing a t-shirt that people created that I really liked. It says, "They stole so much from us that they also stole our fear." In that moment, for me, since I've never been in any protest or anything like that, and I always thought that because people were they wouldn't achieve anything by protesting, because in all my 21 years of living in my country, there was no social cause that actually changed by protesting. So I was really skeptical to what is going to be the outcome. And also, I was really afraid, so it was kind of ironic to wear that t-shirt, so it can remind me that I was also afraid. But then I realized that courage, it's not really the absence of fear, it's that you overcome your fears, that you take a step when you're needed. So the role that I play in the whole protest thing was to take pictures, to document what was going on, to have tapes and recording of everything that was going on, so that we could remember what happened, so that we could have evidence in case if something bad happened. Because there was so much time that we were there, and media wouldn't all the time cover our news. And after a month or so, or more time, the news were getting tired of us, honestly, and they were starting to go against us. Media is a double thing sometimes. So that was what happened, basically. So on September 25th, after that night, all of those documents were burned and things happened. They finally found evidence to bring up to justice to the president of the university, because what we were asking for was him to quit, to step up, to actually tell us, to give someone else the opportunity to stop stealing money from the university. And this is one of the pictures that I took. The people were celebrating in front of the main building. But unfortunately, it wasn't a very long celebration, because that man with the white hair is the president. It was the president of the university. Today, he's still in house arrest because nepotism and the acts of corruption that he committed weren't actually punishable for our justice system. So he went to jail for a little bit, and then he got house arrest because he had money to pay a very good lawyer. So at that moment, after so many protests, we obviously would think all of the young people were really, really disappointed, because they thought that their cause wasn't actually, you didn't accomplish anything. That's what most people would say, especially the negative type of people. But then we looked back and we realized the real change that we made, because today, as I am speaking here, people are still protesting in my country about other issues that we have. So people realized that if they spoke up, they could actually make change. And also us, we're still working in our university, we're still making an effort to change it. We're still raising awareness of all the issues that we have. So we realized that things weren't okay, and we're working on trying to change it. We're organizing ourselves. So we really made a change in people's minds. So when I'm talking about people's minds, is that the change starts in our head. And after all this movement, I realized that corruption is a really, really hard thing to fight, because it doesn't really have a face. You don't really know who could be corrupt. It could be your brother, it could be your father, it could be your sister. You don't really know. Because in my country, and I believe in general, corruption is an opportunity that presents itself, and you have to choose whether you take it or not. So that has to do a lot with education as well. It has to do with our morals and our principles. Now, the final message that I want to leave you with is that when injustice is law, revolution is order. So what all of this movement taught me is that as citizens of the world, we can actually cause a ripple effect and change our society, change our reality, just by raising awareness about an issue. So it doesn't matter what you do, if it's just a hashtag, a reunion, or a gathering of people. The fact that you're raising awareness, the fact that you're talking about, the fact that you're speaking up really makes a difference. Thank you.